traditional media sources are dying out there because they don't have enough sponsorship. NPR is sponsored by the government. Not fully, but a lot. If they were to take the government funding away from NPR, NPR would fold tomorrow. Or maybe not tomorrow, but maybe next month or next year. They would not be around, okay? So they take dopey, goofy, right in the middle stances on everything. And this article by NPR says about Dave Chapelle. He says Dave Chappelle is one of the most brilliant stand-up comics in the business, but he also makes a sport of challenging his audience, putting ideas in front of them and he knows they're uncomfortable and unpalatable for those invested in modern notions of how to talk about feminism, gender, sexual orientation, and race. By the way, he does all that. And none of it is malicious. Most of it is funny. Now, sometimes he does it to make a larger point, according to the article. But at times, especially during his latest special for Netflix called The Closer, he also seems to have a daredevil's relish for going to dangerous places on stage and eventually winning his audience over, regardless of what he's actually saying. Now, much of what he said, people are getting upset about. Case in point, here's one of the jokes he played or said on the Netflix special, The Closer. And early on in his special, according to the article, it's where he talks about an idea for a film centered on an ancient civilization that discovered space travel, left the planet, and then came back, determined to claim the Earth as their own. His punchline? The title of the film? Space Jews. Now, the article goes on to say that even the adoring audience in Detroit took a breath on that one. Then Chappelle says, it's going to get worse than that. And everybody laughed. Now, there's a big difference between making a joke and making a statement. Hey, there's this film, it's this and this and that. We're going to call it Space Jews. That's a joke. You know what? Jews run this earth and there's nothing we can do about it. That's a racist statement. Big difference. Now, coming from Chappelle, a joke sometimes feels like a dare, according to this audience, okay? And he'll have to work a little bit harder to get people back once they leave, according to this article. In fact, in parentheses, the article says, Chappelle also knows reviewers like me will quote the jokes and criticize him for it, which I am. I don't really care at this point that he's trying to make a joke that sounds like anti-Semitism and he gets a hard pass from me. Okay, think about what he just did there. He repeated the Space Jews joke for effect. But then he repeated it to make sure that his dopey article was more interesting. Is that disingenuous? I think so. If it was so horrible, what'd you repeat it for? And the message that Chappelle has, again, according to the article, and the message that Chappelle has for those who have criticized him about transphobic, homophobic, or any other phobic jokes seems to be race trumps all. In other words, this guy accuses Chappelle of saying, it's okay for me to say this because I'm black. That's the author's perception. By the way, the author's also black. In fact, let me give you his name real quick. His name is Eric Deggans. Okay. This idea surfaces, according to the article again, when he talks about rapper DaBaby, who was publicly chastised for making homophobic comments about a concert in July. Chappelle jokes that DaBaby punched the LGBTQ community right in the AIDS. That was also right before recalling an incident in 2018 where the rapper was involved in a fight outside a North Carolina Walmart where another person was shot and killed. Now, here's what Chappelle says, okay? And if you think about what he says, it's hard to argue with. And I will quote. Chappelle says, in our country, this is on stage, part of the act, okay? Chappelle says, in our country, you can shoot and kill a nigga, but you better not hurt a gay person's feelings. It's funny, but not untrue. Now, in the closer, Chapelle eventually says he's jealous of the progress that the gay rights movement has made in America. Chapelle quoted, "If slaves had oil and booty shorts on, we might have been free 100 years sooner." Sorry, folks, that's not homophobic. That's funny. But lines like that assume that the struggle over oppression is a zero-sum game because some gay people have access to white privilege in America, and all their concerns about stereotyping and marginalizing are hollow and subordinate to what black people face. It ignores the fact that there are plenty of non-white gay people who face oppression for both their sexual orientation and their race. Okay, so there you go. The gays have it bad, but the black gays have it real bad. Chapelle says again, gay people are minorities until they need to be white again. Chapelle says, as the capper to a different story about his conflict with a white man at a nightclub who called the police. The comic says the man he fought was very gay. And again, we know that calling the police on a black man in the post-George Floyd world can be interesting. That's according to the article again. But if some belligerent jerk were confronting me in a nightclub, I'd probably call the cops, regardless of the race of the jerk. And Chapelle refuses to consider that possibility. Think about what the author says. He probably would call the cops on him. Okay, probably would, but when would he not? Maybe if you were black, he wouldn't. If you were gay, I don't know. Somebody were being belligerent to me, I'd definitely call the cops. I don't care. Not probably, not maybe, definitely. Doesn't matter what they look like. So again, he prefaced his statement. And Chapelle gets criticized again because he goes on to joke that for years he thought that the word feminism meant a frumpy dyke, and that the Me Too movement was silly because wealthy women in Hollywood didn't fire their agents and uplift women working in the mailroom. That, he just figured, was how to nail white people on their racism. Some white people changed the game by declaring that they were changing genders. Think about that. Then Chapelle also says he was once asked why it was easier for Caitlyn Jenner to transition in public than Cassius Clay to change his name to Muhammad Ali. The thing about Chapelle, and it goes on and on and on. There's a little piece in there how Chapelle had a friend named Daphne Dorman, who was a transgender comic. He befriended him, and allowed Daphne Dorman to open for him in a club in San Francisco back in 2019. Dorman died of suicide that same year. So if Chapelle is so homophobic, why did he do the ultimate helping hand to somebody and give him a job? Because he looks past that. He's a comic who says things to make people laugh. Okay? It's funny the way this article was written. And it's the whole thing that, we can never say anything that is perhaps offensive to anybody who might be a little different than us. That, friends, makes the world so boring that it's almost not worth living in. I'm not saying you're malicious. I'm not saying you be hateful. I'm not saying that you be insensitive. But to make a off-color joke occasionally doesn't hurt anything. And that's how Dave Chapelle makes a living. If you take profanity, sex, race, gender, anything different, if a comic is never offensive, never, friends, I'm going to say that a comic is not funny. And why would you go see a comic that's not funny? Comics are an escape. They're a form of entertainment. If you don't like the comic, don't watch them. If you don't think they're funny, don't listen to them. If you think they're truly offensive, don't watch them. Don't listen to them. But this whole deal with people putting everybody into a cubbyhole, again, whether it's about sex, whether it's about gender, whether it's about race, this has to stop. Because there are real problems out there. And they're not a comic saying the wrong word or saying the wrong thing about somebody, or somebody saying something disparaging against a black person, or somebody, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm getting at. Tolerance means accepting others for what they are. And that goes both ways. I don't think Jon Gruden said anything that was racist. I don't think Urban Meyer did anything that he should be fired for. Now, that's between him and his wife. He's going to catch more hell at home, I would think, because he's been married to that gal for about almost 40 years. But that's where he's going to catch hell, from his wife. Let them handle that, okay? I don't think that Gretchen Filiaw is going in the wrong direction at promoting her product, okay? People do what they do. They use the talent that they have, and they should continue to do so. Now, be kind in the process. Don't hurt people's feelings. Don't be malicious. Don't be hateful. But there's a big difference between being hateful and making a joke, even if that joke lands flat occasionally. It all has to do with the intent. What was your intent? Did you intend to hurt? Did you intend to belittle that person, cut them down to size with your remark? If that was the reason for doing it, you're wrong. If that was the result, maybe you should apologize. Or maybe the person who was offended needs to grow a thicker skin. Well, that's it. I'm done. I do welcome emails to my podcast at all times. I do respond to my emails. If you have an opinion about this podcast, please let me know. JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. Send me an email. You can also send me an email. And what I will do then is I will go ahead and email you a link to the podcast upon publication. You can download it and listen to it at your leisure. That's it. I'm done. Have a good week. Until next time, this is James Strong saying adios.